Hi, I'm Rich Story. Welcome to another Level Up Cartooning. All you need to follow along with me is a pencil and paper. It doesn't get any easier than that, right? Now, before we get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button as it helps this channel to grow, and hit the bell so you never miss a lesson. Okay, so we've been drawing our way through some of the top anime series to grace the airwaves here in the US from the 1960s to the present, including last week's lesson on how to draw the stars of Pokemon, Ash Ketchum and Pikachu. And I plan on drawing a few of the zillion Pokemon. I promise to get to some of them soon. But today, in honor of the new live-action version of Lilo and Stitch, now out, I had the urge to draw the original version of Stitch. Hard to believe it's been 23 years since that movie first aired. Anyways, before we get started, I wanted to mention that if you stick with me until the end, when we're all done with our drawing of Stitch, I thought it might be fun to sketch some Stitch thumbnails, other action poses, to sprinkle around our main drawing. These will be thumbnails, so not much detail, drawn lightly and in rough form. This type of exercise is very good for you in terms of getting to know a character's basic form, and it's also a lot of fun. Sound good? So let's draw. We're going to draw Stitch step by step, giving you the secret formula to be able to draw him again and again. If you watched any of my other videos, you know I normally use the character's head to figure out how big the entire character is. In this pose, Stitch is roughly 2 heads tall. In other words, however tall the shape that makes up his head is, his entire body is just over 2 of those tall, not counting his one banana-shaped ear that kind of sticks up on the side. Okay, so what do you say we get started with a roadmap for the original version of Stitch? So there's our roadmap for Stitch. Now, before we go on to step 2, I want to give you the layout of our little blue Experiment 626 using simple shapes for those of you who want to screen grab. Just something to help you when laying out your drawing of Stitch. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. In this step, we do what I call roughing out the features. I want to remind you that until the third and final step, you want to draw as light as possible. You'll see that I use guidelines to help me to position Stitch's eyes, nose, mouth, and some of the other features. We don't want those guidelines in the final drawing, so you want to draw them light enough to be able to erase them easily. Alright, so let's rough out the features for our drawing of Stitch from Disney's original Lilo and Stitch. Okay, so there are the roughed out features of Stitch. So now with the roadmap done and the features roughed out, it's time for that final step. In step 3, we get to have fun. We get to draw on the final details of Stitch. We don't have to guess where to put things because we've already done all the hard work to figure that out. Now would be the time to take a moment and look at your drawing while it's still lightly sketched out and fix or change things before you commit the drawing to those final lines. But even after you begin those final lines, you should still be thinking about how you might improve your drawing of Stitch all the way until the very end. Okay? So what do you say we draw the details for Stitch? And that's how you do it. There you have it, from Disney's original 2D animated version of Lilo and Stitch, Stitch. Okay, so as I've promised, before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you this little bonus clip drawing some action thumbnails of Stitch around the main drawing. Not only is this a really good drawing exercise to really help familiarize yourself with a character, but also gives the overall drawing a little something extra. The important thing here is to loosen up and not concern yourself with details. This is strictly a sketching exercise. Okay, so let's draw our Stitch thumbnails. All right, that was fun. We need to do more of those. So how do you think you did? Understand, if you've never drawn any version of Stitch before, then you cannot expect to have drawn him perfectly. You notice I don't spend time coloring our drawing during this video because I want my lesson to focus solely on the drawing process. But now you have the secret formula, the process for drawing the 2D animated version of Stitch. And with that, you can draw him again and again. And by all means, color him when you're done. I promise each time you draw Stitch, it'll be a little better and a little easier. I also promise the more you work with me, the better you're going to get at all of your cartoon characters. So I'd love to see your drawing of Stitch. If you can, take a picture and post it on either Facebook or Instagram. And don't forget to include the hashtag #LevelUpCartooning. I hope you had as much fun as I did with this one. Remember to subscribe, and thanks for joining me. Until next time, keep drawing, my friends.